Hi everyone. Afternoon, Kidder.
Hi, Kidder.
51 issues of Marvel time.
Yes, and we are starting off our mega Marvel Monday time Wednesday show now.
Yeah. So we're gonna add Bekah into the mix once we're done talking about this week's comics, because she has more important things to do than read 5 comic books every Wednesday morning. We will talk about Loki, we'll talk about the news, and we'll talk about comic books. I did have something to say. Oh, I kind of feel like if this was like an actual Marvel show, like we would renumber it. This should be like a new number 1.
Yeah.
But, I'm all about the legacy numbering here at Laughing Place.
Yeah, maybe we should make it. This should be Marvel Time issue number 1, Legacy 51. But we can figure that out later.
So, what do we just want to start with comic books today, Mac?
Well, so first off, I have to ask you: did you get a chance to catch up on last week's?
I did.
Okay, so you did get to see the beginning of the Hellfire Gala.
I did, and you were absolutely right.
Yeah, wasn't it like way more fun than you anticipated?
It was a lot of fun. I guess I don't know what I was expecting, because it is what it is. I mean, it's not surprising, like Ten of Swords might have been, but we talk about how sometimes the X-Men can not be fun, and this was just a whole lot of fun. And you're right, it's all connected and integrated, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, so we're jumping back into it this week, and we're starting off with Excalibur number 21. What were your thoughts on this one?
So we've talked often about my sort of like hole in knowledge and passion around Captain Britain, which makes Excalibur sometimes a tough read, but I actually liked what was going on here. It was interesting to see different perspectives on how they're handling sort of the intersection of mutantdom and sort of the mystic Britain realm coven, and I thought it was actually pretty interesting, more interesting than I thought it would be.
Yeah, interesting is definitely a good word to describe it. I agree. This is still a very confusing corner of the Marvel universe to me. It's hard to follow at times. There's a lot of different levels of magic happening. But I was excited that I've been waiting to wear this Jubilee shirt for a long time, and she hasn't popped up in a comic until now. So I was happy to do that. But yeah, I mean, again, this gave us really awesome elements of the Hellfire Gala. And it's funny how I think a lot of it boils down to just seeing all these characters dressed up for like this grand party and seeing the awesome outfits and the art that has come out of this. So that's been really cool. But
I have to say, it's fun to see. I mean, and this is more not necessarily specific to this issue, but having been around Disney, you kind of get to see the party planner mentality of a lot of different people, and to see Emma Frost as like a Disney event manager is a lot of fun.
That is pretty much exactly what's going on throughout these 5 issues now that we've read. I also have the big question from this issue: what human nation wants to break an alliance with Krakoa? That just doesn't seem like it would be in your best interest to, you got this island filled with some of the most powerful people on the planet, and you're going to just go ahead and break your alliance with them. But I don't know. I guess we'll see how that plays out.
It's interesting that to see, it's not even just the mutant characters that are interesting to see. It's like, it's fun to see how Iron Man would handle a Hellfire Gala. It's interesting to see how Captain America would handle a Hellfire Gala. Like he would be there out of a sense of duty, but he would be miserable the entire time. And it's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun seeing all of these different characters at the Hellfire Gala. And speaking of, we're going to see it from another angle here with X-Men number 21. What are your thoughts on the new team and the start of this new series here?
Well, I've been around a while, so I've seen many mutant teams. But my favorite part was when Kevin Feige asked Cyclops to tell him his story, which is
Yeah, you heard Benji right. It was Kevin Feige talking to Cyclops in this comic. They don't, I guess, outright mention that it's him, but you look at the picture, like, that is Kevin Feige. He has the hat on and everything. It was amazing.
Yeah, and it's interesting how there was some cool sort of like psychic stuff that happens in this issue. But yeah, it's a little I guess what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little bit like we knew the team kind of beforehand because it was publicly announced. So it's a little bit of okay, let's get started. But it is a filler issue, but the filler's good. Mm-hmm. It's like McDonald's. It's filled with garbage, but you enjoy it.
That's the first time we've ever compared a comic book to McDonald's, I think. But yeah, it works. Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed this. There's a lot of stories going on with the Hellfire Gala, like a lot of different branches coming out of it. And so there's a lot going on, but you're right. It wasn't like nothing huge happened. It actually started a very interesting, different story that I did not expect to see in this title with involving Namor. Mm-hmm. So I guess we'll see where that goes too. But yeah, so a lot of cool stuff happening with Hellfire Gala, and I've definitely enjoyed it much more than I thought I would so far.
I will say I read 5 Hellfire Gala issues in like 2 hours, so it was a lot. And because it all happens like at the same time, sometimes it's hard to keep track of like what happened in what issue, because there's panels where you see it from one side and one title and another side from another title. So which is irrelevant. I mean, it doesn't affect your enjoyment of it. It's just interesting. When we talk about it, it's almost like you gotta kind of have to talk about this week's Hellfire issues, not necessarily individual title.
Yeah, that's a good point. So speaking of an ongoing story, we have been in the middle of Heroes Reborn, this quote unquote crossover event, I suppose. I have, again, this is like Hellfire Gala. I've been enjoying this a lot more than I thought I would. And this week's issue was no different. What about you?
So once again, I read issue 5 and 6 back to back, and I felt like, so we kind of got their version of Superman. We kind of got their version of Batman. We kind of get their version of Wonder Woman at this point. So I'm starting to get a little bit of like, I get it. Let's move on with the story. And so it's like, I've learned that the backup story, or I should say the second story, is where like stuff I care about actually happens. But yeah, I mean, I would say it's good. It's like we get it at this point, and it's, with one issue left in the Heroes Reborn title, I kind of feel like we need to get the ball rolling here.
That's a good point, and something I didn't really take into account. I guess there's going to have to be a lot. There might be a longer issue than what we've seen so far. And while I agree with everything you said, this is still my pick of the week. I think it still stands out more than any of the other issues. Yeah, you're right. This is still, like, we've said it before. We had Superman, we had Batman. This is obviously Wonder Woman. They even have the Flash in there too. So it's these like different versions of those DC characters almost, and it's leading up to something really, really cool. And I can't wait for it. But I mean, you're right. It is kind of, with one issue left, I guess there is a lot to cram into it. And granted, there are a lot of tie-in issues as well. So
it's interesting to hear people talk about Mephisto as, like, we would say, God.
Right.
Like, yeah. Like, good Mephisto. Like, what a day I had. Or
yeah, that was one of the big twist endings at one of the issues a few weeks back, and that's been,
I think issue 3.
One of the cool things about this whole new universe that they are telling this story in, and also some more stuff that team of Avengers continues to build here in this universe, and they got a pretty big heavy hitter in this one. So I'm excited to see how this goes. Some really interesting character development. So I'm looking forward to it for sure. That brings us to The Amazing Spider-Man, number 68. The Chameleon Conspiracy, part 2, after that started off last week. There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, and it's all connected, but nobody knows it's connected. And it gets, it's a lot. Like usually you think of the Chameleon as not that it's a straightforward story because he's a chameleon, but you know, like not as like into the web as he's
a very grounded character.
Yeah. And I don't mean that as a criticism. It's a different take. And there's a lot going on here and a lot of callbacks. Like I wouldn't almost it's a good story, but I would not recommend it for like this as a starting point for anyone. And even though it's, you know, part 1 and part 2, it's all deep into like Hobgoblin and Betty Brant and stuff. That means absolutely nothing if you don't really have some sort of grasp on the character's like history, but also like his sort of supporting cast. I mean, it's so they try and explain it. And it's not, you know, but it's very deep into Spider-Man mythos here, and I'm curious to see where this goes, especially as we know like Sinister War's coming up. So I'm enjoying it. I guess I just don't know what the vision is for this title. Like I feel like, you know, we have the sort of Kindred thing still happening. You have Sinister, and then you have this Chameleon thing all happening at the same time, and it's like, what story am I following? You know, like it just all seems to be. It seems like there's 3 stories happening at the same time, and it's been going on for a while.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you said everything that I had on my mind pretty much. I will just add real quick that I am happy to see that Ned is back. I think that's a pretty cool addition. It did seem like they hinted at Kindred a little bit, and I was hoping to see him pop back up in the story. We'll see. Hopefully that happens soon. But yeah, the part of this issue that got me the most excited was the last 2 pages, which is just, you know, sort of on the side of what's going on in Amazing Spider-Man right now. They are sort of building this Doc Ock story leading to Sinister War, and so those are the most enjoyable 2 pages of the whole thing for me. So I'm definitely looking forward to Sinister War, but in the meantime, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see what they can do with this story, because so far I'm not sold.
Yeah, I think it's going to all kind of depend on how it plays out and how it connects itself. You know, it's kind of like when you watch a drama and there's like 3 stories, and then you know it's all going to kind of come to a head at the end of the episode, like it's all going to connect. But we're not there yet. So I'll give it some. I mean, Spider-Man, I'll give it some time. But
right. And speaking of Spider-Man, we have another new series here. Well, I should have had that GIF of you ready to go from the attraction. But we've got Web of Spider-Man #1. This, of course, tying into Avengers Campus over at Disney's California Adventure. By process of elimination here, I assume this is your pick of the week.
It is. And probably not because it's like the best comic book of the week, but I'm still so high off of Avengers Campus that anything that lets me live that without spending time in a queue is awesome. And this takes place outside of the main Marvel continuity, and it's it obviously, as you can see on the cover, it's not like in Avengers Camp. It's not like it's there. I'm here at California Adventure, but it's like that facility. So and presumably in New York, and it doesn't tell the story of the attraction, but it tells a story that takes place in the world of the attraction, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't tell the story of the attraction, at least yet, anyway. I guess we can see where it goes. But yeah, I wonder if I would have taken this story differently had I already experienced Avengers Campus, because this is cool. This is a very fun little tie-in to Avengers Campus, and I like that they did this. I like that they were giving us more context on the whole thing. There were some cool nods to like Easter eggs in the queue and stuff like that, and just kind of pulling information from that, like details that people wouldn't have thought of to build a bigger story around. And here it is. We have a comic series to read about it now. As far as the comic itself, though, this isn't a story that, let's say, remove Avengers Campus from the equation. This is not something I would have continued on with this series for sure. I mean, it's cute, but it's not a great start to a comic story.
Yeah, it's there to. It has the same tone as the attraction. It's light. It's fun. I don't want to say low stakes because I mean it's always stakes, but it's not like saving the galaxy or anything like that. It's just misadventures in a lab where people probably should be more careful. Which is sort of the plot of the Spider-Man ride.
I will say I was a little bit surprised that this Spider-Man was not drawn to look like Tom Holland.
I think that would have been a lot more expensive.
Probably. You're probably right. Maybe they could change it a little bit, but all right. So that is it for our comics for the week. So we're going to get into news. And for that, let's bring on our third member of this team here. Hi, Bekah.
Hi, Bekah.
Oh, I think we got you muted again. Hang on.
Oh. Unmute.
Nope,
Unmute.
it's me. That was my fault. My ticket. How are you guys?
Good. We have a lot of Marvel stuff to get through, and of course we're gonna talk about Loki in a little bit here. But before we do that, we had a really busy week in the world of Marvel as far as news goes. So let's catch up on some of that first. And Benji and I can do the heavy lifting on the first couple stories here because we have some more comics related news going on here. They announced Inferno, the next X-Men story that'll be coming in September. And we don't really know a ton about this just yet, but apparently the world of the X-Men is going to be burnt to the ground. So kind of...
When you live on a living plant island kind of thing, that's not great.
It doesn't sound great.
Yeah. It also makes it hard to get invested in the story that's going on right now. It's going to burn everything down in a few months, but I guess
also the trial of Magneto might not be as important. But
yeah, that's true. That is true.
Now, do you see Xavier in this image?
That's a good question. I haven't really scanned everyone, but yeah.
Where?
He is in front of Magneto.
Oh, there he is.
Emma,
He kind of looks like Magneto's belly button. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of characters crammed into this. So
yeah, I mean, I think notably Krakoa in the back there.
Yes, yeah, that's going to be interesting to see just what that means. That the world of the X-Men will be burnt to the ground. I'm not sure. But speaking of, we also get the death of Doctor Strange coming in September, and before we get into anything else about this, I mean, this comic cover is one of my favorite, I possibly since we started doing this show. That is so awesome.
It looks really cool. I love the colors.
Yeah, I thought they did a really, really great job with this cover.
How long is he gonna be dead?
Yeah.
That's the issue here. Anytime you call it a comic, the death of anyone, it's hard to be sold on it really, because does anyone really stay dead other than Uncle Ben?
Uncle Ben. It used to be Uncle Ben and Bucky Barnes, but then Ed Brubaker screwed that up.
I was looking at this post or this article, and they're asking the question, like Marvel itself is like, who killed Doctor Strange? Do you guys have any ideas who would be strong enough and more or powerful enough to,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways they could go with that, but usually when they build it up in this way, it's some sort of twist. So it's probably somebody who's close to him in some way, or maybe he did it himself, like an alternate version of himself or something. It's probably going to be something along those lines. Would be my guess. Bats, maybe Bats does it. Agatha. Oh, we're going to talk about Mephisto. Don't worry. In other non-comic related news, a Marvel Multiverse tabletop role-playing game was announced, which I think is really, really cool. I don't have enough personality to play something like Dungeons and Dragons, but I think this is so awesome that this is being introduced.
If I liked playing with other people, I might be excited about. I always wanted to do Dungeons and Dragons, but I had no one to play with, and I didn't know what it was, and then by the time it got popular, I was way out of my league. like I need to play with a bunch of 10-year-olds, not like 40-year-olds. Like, but yeah, you know, I mean, I'm curious. We'll see if I get in on the ground floor with this. Maybe we'll do like a group, like webcast tabletop game.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you heard it here first. LP Marvel Multiverse Live coming in 2022.
Sounds exciting.
Bekah, is this something you would see yourself playing?
I've never done anything like this. The only RPG I've done is World of Warcraft, and you're not like, I didn't actually know anybody who I was, you know, playing with or talking to, and I didn't even talk to people that much. So completely different from something like Dungeons and Dragons, but I'd be willing to give it a try. I think I'd be very hesitant about it, but I would try it.
Yeah, I'm with you the same way.
Role playing is about playing with someone who matches the intensity you have. You don't want to play with anyone who cares more about it than you do, and
Right.
you probably don't want to play with people who care less about it than you do.
Sure.
Because it's not then you're like, you know, to quote William Shatner, you kind of like get a life.
Some more Marvel products coming out. We have a Hasbro Wolverine versus Villains 5-pack, which is a very unique grouping of characters here. I thought this was very strange, but some really cool figures, especially the Omega Red one that we'll get to here in a minute. Oh, if anything wants to load. There we go.
Sorry about that.
So here is Wolverine.
Now with less clothes.
Yeah. Everybody loves a shirtless Wolverine, right? As we talked about on Movie Club this past Monday. With that throwback look, though, too. I do love that he has that old gear. But then Callisto, which is an interesting character. You don't see many figures. I'm not sure how many Hasbro figures of Callisto there's been, but pretty cool to see her in there. And then Cyber. That was one that when I think of Wolverine villains, Cyber is not one of them that comes to mind. So that was, but again, a pretty cool sculpt and some cool detail on this character here. So, and then another one, Jason Wingard, which if you're going to do this, you'd think you're going to have Jean Grey involved in some way, but no, guess not.
How many heads of Jason Wingard do you need?
Right. I like that they gave him an alternate head because I find this one to be a little bit creepy.
I feel like if you put Wolverine's head on the body, it's a Hugh Jackman role from some movie, like, you know,
The Prestige.
Yeah, there you go.
Kate and Leopold or something, or The Prestige or something. Yeah.
And then here's the one that I really liked, was the Omega Red figure. That's a character that I've always thought was really cool and lend himself very well to a toy. So that's a pretty cool addition. So the Marvel or Wolverine versus Villains 5-pack, a very interesting concept that Hasbro went ahead with, but yeah, pretty awesome. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, so we got a new theme song here for Spidey and his amazing friends. Oddly enough, by let me see, I just want to make sure I get his name right. Patrick Stump from Fall Out Boy.
I got something to say about this.
All right, go for it.
So they keep sending us this thing about Patrick Stump doing them song. I was like, okay, you know, fine. And then I didn't realize he was like from Fall Out Boy, because I'm not really like a musical expert. So I was like, you need to lead with Fall Out Boy's Patrick Stump is doing the song from Spidey and his Amazing Friends. Otherwise, you think it's like Bo Black or any other Disney Junior regulars who are not that they're not great, but not worthy of like all this hoopla.
Well, it's funny too, because if you listen to the song, you're immediately just like, this is a Fall Out Boy song.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a Marvel Spidey and his Amazing Friends song. This is Fall Out Boy. And then if you listen to the lyrics, obviously it's a little bit different, but yeah, it's pretty funny to listen to. And you can check that out right now on laughingplace.com, of course.
I told Kyle I'm going to watch this show just because of the theme song. So I very much enjoyed it.
You know, you can just watch the theme song on.
That's
on
true
YouTube.
too. But he's also he's like scoring it as well. So I don't know if there'll be other songs with lyrics, but you know. I'm
I wonder if there's going to be like Spidey going like, with great power.
Yeah.
Right?
Is this going to become yet another Spider-Man musical?
Yeah, who knows?
Some more fun from over at Disney California Adventure. So with Avengers Campus opening up, you had all of the superheroes vacate their areas that they had in the parks previously. So now we've got Disney characters cosplaying as their favorite Marvel characters. So we've got Chip as Thor here, and then, of course, Dale as Loki as well.
Mickey is Captain America, Minnie as Ghost Spider or Spider-Gwen, depending on what comic you're reading. And these I first saw these guys on the Disney Cruise Line during Marvel Day at Sea. So I don't know if these guys are at California Adventure too, but they also had to like Donald as Hulk and Daisy as Black Widow.
Yeah, I think so.
And Pluto has a Marvel collar, but I can't remember because it's just a collar, like who it was.
Huh. I know that they had them there during.
Oh, and Goofy's Iron Man.
Oh, okay.
But like in a swimsuit, like, yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, that threw me for a loop for a second there. I know they appeared in Disney California Adventure before at a Disneyland After Dark Heroes Assemble event. So we have seen them before, but cool to see that they're back just on during regular operation right now.
Yeah, and it's nice to get a little bit of magic without Marvel magic without having to be in Avengers Campus, because it's not always the easiest place to get into.
Let's get into some Loki fun because we're going to be talking about the debut of the new show, of course.
I got a lot to say about this.
Oh, well, I'm glad you do, because I was just upset as I was putting everything together for the show that I totally forgot to try and log on and buy these. And they are, of course, sold out now, so you cannot get me Loki charms anymore. But what do you got for us?
So they did this thing where if you were one of the first 1,000 people to enter his deviant name, his deviant, what's it called? Is that what he is? Whatever they call the number.
Oh, variant.
Variant.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting all my celestial Marvel.
There's so much.
You could go in, log in early, and pre-order. So I woke up at 6:00 to go log in, and it said sold out. And I'm like, Rrr. And then I was following on Twitter, and there's a lot of drama about people hacking it and stuff. And then to Lucky Charms' credit, if you were one of the folks that was supposed to be able to pre-order it, if you emailed them, they're going to let you order it. So you just have to email them from the email that you registered with. So they will get you a box somehow. But it was very aggravating this morning because I was like, oh, I have a pre-order. I have 2 hours to order this before it opens up to general sales. They're not going to let more. They're going to have plenty for the people that pre-ordered.
Right.
They did something else.
Yeah. So unfortunately, no Loki charms for us. At least not yet. I guess we'll see what happens because as Kyle points out here, people want them, so they'll probably make them.
They're magically delicious.
I think mischievously delicious is what they're going with.
Although I gotta say, it's just Lucky Charms with a different box. They didn't do special shapes or anything.
Right.
It just
which is. I mean, I'd probably just be taking the bag of Lucky Charms out and just putting the box on display somewhere anyway. But there are some Loki themed treats that I can get a chance to try out because Disney Springs has some offerings right now, as they have for the other Marvel series. Over at Amorette's, you can get this Loki cake, which is really awesome. But my problem with Amorette's stuff is I don't want to eat that. It's just it's
Right.
too cool. I don't want to break it and ruin the art. And then over at Ganachery, you've got this chocolate lollipop, and I know both of these offerings have apple and caramel flavors, which I am a fan of. So I'm probably gonna have to get over there and try those.
Very cool.
And then finally, we got some very fun news today. After Loki debuted on Disney Plus, we learned that the variant Loki, see what I did there, will be coming into Avengers Campus as early as this week. So really interesting that they are updating Avengers Campus this quickly.
And he'll be there with the Minutemen from the TVA. Speaking of collars, I think this is what I wanted from Avengers Campus. I want it to update. I want it to be fresh. I mean, granted, it's a weekend, so it's hard to be like, oh, they're going to do this forever. But when I was in Avengers Campus, I was like, Loki's there, and you're like, huh, I wonder like what's going to happen. And I really hope that they keep this up. I mean, we don't know where Loki's headed, as a series or a character, but I hope as new content comes out that they just keep giving you new reasons to visit Avengers Campus.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the coolest things about this. And they mentioned specifically, too, that you can expect more changes over the next month as Loki progresses, as the series progresses. So you're going to see more changes. And there's no reason to believe that wouldn't be the case with other series and movies going forward. So, I mean, I think that's really the most exciting thing about this land.
So you're going to have to give us an update next week.
Yeah.
What does Loki look like? Who's he wearing?
Hopefully I can give you an update next week. We'll see how things go when we're in there. But yeah, that should be the case at least.
You're not going to have your phone off and be like, what? You guys were trying to talk to me? I'm just taking it all in.
Well, I got to make sure I get into Avengers Campus first.
Okay, that's true.
Bekah, what do you think about this addition here and these changes to Avengers Campus?
It seems a little weird to me, but I think, like Ben's saying, this is what it's built for, and this seems like the perfect playground almost to bring characters from the MCU series and just different things that they do throughout the throughout Marvel in general. It seems like it'd be a great place to do that. So yeah, I think it's a good idea, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and with that, I guess this is as good a time as any to get into Loki. But if you watched us on Marvel Mondays after WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you know how we start these things off. We first get into the Marvel must-haves, which Bekah will talk us through.
Yeah, let me close my thing here. We've had a lot of items that debuted a couple weeks ago, like previewing Loki, and then this week they introduced some more. So I know I have a lot of tabs open here. Don't want to spend too much time going on it, but yeah, there's some stuff with Miss Minutes. There's a lot of items on Amazon. So if you are into collecting everything Marvel, there's plenty of options for you here. And with this, there's a couple different styles. So you can also get like a tumbler, 12 or 16 ounce tumbler. So some fun. Let's see if it loads here. There we go. It's a little bit different. So there's a lot of fun stuff. I like these glasses a lot. This Titan can glass. And you've got, of course, Mobius and Loki. So that's available on Amazon. There's another look at that. These Displate, I think I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah.
These posters that are very customizable as far as like sizing and whether you want a matte finish, gloss finish, or even have it framed. They have a lot of these really cool artistic prints that you can get. I love that style, like the animation style. I think that's so cool. And then there's something about all of this Loki merchandise is like a little bit unsettling, but very cool, at least for me. So I'm excited to see what they do with this. But yeah, there's plenty of options. And of course, Miss Minutes here. We've got her with her saying woo diggity or woo doggy. So,
I expect to see a lot of Miss Minutes merchandise coming out of this show for sure.
Yeah, Rebecca and I were talking about it on Barely Necessities. She's like, there's got to be a plush coming, right? So I would hope so. And then finally, one more that I thought was pretty cool is this.
Yeah,
just you've got awesome. Loki and then like his regular look. And then over at Hasbro, we have this Mobius. It's a Target exclusive from Hasbro figure here, and he's got his little his tie.
I always find it funny when there are action figures of just a guy in a suit.
Right. You're like, what's he really doing? I love this photo where it's like the back of his head and his little device there.
I would like to take this moment to celebrate 15th anniversary of Cars.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. They were supposed to release the Disney collectible key like 2 days ago. And then it's like, oh no, they're going to hold it for everything to be, Owen Wilson, same day. This coloring book, I actually haven't looked at this. I pulled that up because I was like, that might be something I want to get. Amazon has a lot of items as well. So you'll see in our post, we've got some shirts, and there's plenty of things that you can customize, or whatever fits your personal needs. And then of course we've got 2 pops, so fun, lots of fun stuff. But there'll be more coming, I'm sure. We're 20 weeks into the 52-week celebration of everything Marvel must-haves.
There's so much good stuff. Like, it just freezes you. Like, I mean, I love the TVA stuff and all that, and you're just like, I don't know which one to buy. I don't know which one. It's so much.
Well, and then some designs you can get like on a mug, or you can get it on a pillow, or you can get a poster. You're like,
we have a big no more mug policy here.
Yeah, we're running into the same problem there too.
Yeah. So.
And not to be that guy, but I can pretty confidently say there's going to be some more merch to come out of next week's episode for sure. It's something that I am definitely going to want.
That's right. You got to see the second one, didn't you?
Which means that when we talk about the episode, I'm going to have such a hard time remembering what happened in episode 1 and what happened in episode 2.
Yeah, so we're going to have to try and be careful with that. But yeah, we'll try and break it down. Those socks are awesome.
Yeah, those are from Rockham. Oh, I guess Rockham socks. So there you go. Title sequence. Very cool color green. But yeah, that's it from me.
Cool. So, all right, that's going to do it for today's episode. No, I'm just kidding. We are actually going to talk about Loki. So first episode debut today. And like Benji said, we have to try and stick to just episode 1. I guess first, what was everyone's overall thought on this debut episode?
Anybody? Okay.
So it is the gift that keeps on giving, because there's a lot to it, right? A lot of exposition, a lot of storytelling, a lot of time, as we've talked about sort of privately, like time travel. You just gotta go with it, right? And I couldn't help but think that this whole series is a way to stick it to Star Wars fans, because so the whole time we're in Avengers Campus, like, it's not set in a time period. There's Sam Wilson as Captain America, there's Steve Rogers as Captain America. It's all sort of a way just to celebrate all of Marvel storytelling, as opposed to Galaxy's Edge, where you can't see Darth Vader because it takes place between episode 8 and 9. And so when they start talking about the one sacred timeline, I couldn't think of like all those Star Wars friends being like, is this canon? Did this really happen?
Right.
Like, if it actually happened. So I think it's funny because we know that Marvel, I mean, we have the MCU, but we know that Marvel has various sort of multiverse plans, which isn't a spoiler because they have a movie called The Multiverse of Madness. And so it's interesting to see. It's funny to see how Marvel has grown from Iron Man, which was about as grounded as a movie as you can be, to the Timekeepers destroying with a weird organization called the TVA, who protect the Supreme Timeline, and where Infinity Stones are treated as tchotchkes. And I think it's funny that the writer of this show is also working on Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, but also Kevin Feige's Star Wars film. So that's sort of my big picture thought on it.
Bekah, what about you?
I really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun with it. I know it was kind of exposition heavy, but I could have watched, I could keep watching Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston talking and sitting in that room just talking about timeline stuff. I very much enjoyed that. And I like time travel as a, plot device, if you will. So this is so far right up my alley.
Was the magazine in this episode, or is that in next week's episode?
So I noticed you can see it in this episode, but
Okay.
we don't talk about it yet.
Okay.
I was like, did I miss something? So
No, yeah, we'll be getting to that next week. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned how you like time travel. I love time travel stories. My wife hates them, so it's gonna be really interesting to see, how this plays out. I do think that's an issue that people might end up having with it. I think this show is going to blow people's minds for better or worse. I think it's going to open up the idea that anything can happen at any time, and people who should be dead or missing or whatever could not be at any point, and anything can change. And I think that's going to take a lot for people to get on board with. But for the people who can, I think it's really, really going to hit. I think this is the strongest opening to any of the Marvel series on Disney Plus so far, for me at least.
And I think they did a smart plot device, finding a way to get the Loki from the end of Avengers caught up to the Loki we know, because he had such character growth, through Ragnarok and Infinity War, and you would hate just to kind of be like, I am going to take over the world, Loki again. And so by having himself catch up, but also having the emotions of catching up, so it wasn't just like, what happened to me kind of situation. Right. I felt was a great way. It's not the same Loki, obviously, but it was I think a good way to be like, not feel like we're kind of going all the way back to a second appearance.
Sure.
Another thing I loved about this so far too is that it's not like anything else in the MCU. It's a very different genre. We are getting into a film noir crime thriller story here, as opposed to your typical superhero story. And I think that's so cool that the MCU is real. And obviously we've seen them go into a sitcom, and then we've seen, spy thrillers and heist comedies and stuff like that. So I love that they are really branching out and starting to do some crazy stuff. And I think this is going to be the craziest yet.
And not to beat up on poor Star Wars, but I like that.
Star Wars is doing just fine. Don't worry about it.
I like that, they're able to go into all these different genres. I mean, which they've done in the movies, right? You have heist movies, you have buddy films, but each Loki, WandaVision, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier are all so different. Mm-hmm. And it's only through Disney Plus that you really get to enjoy all of them, and also give them the time to breathe. I mean, I know, you add it up, it's probably like a long movie, but you get a sense of, there's thousands of Marvel characters. Every character we meet, we want to know more about. And you're not going to, and to get to spend time with a character like this through, was it 6 episodes? Do we even know?
Yeah, 6 episodes.
It's it gives you a little bit of time to get these characters, get to know them, because the movies are always so like big, epic battles. And, there's not a lot of of those character moments. I mean, I shouldn't say there's not a lot, but you have less because it's 2.5 hours.
Yeah, you get more time this way.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, it's funny saying it about this series because time means nothing anymore. So, whatever. But I want to talk about Miss Minutes, of course, too. And we already talked a little bit about her explanation that she gave about how the timeline and, branching off and, pruning those branches. But you have to love that they set a situation up here, a setting in which, you can just kind of give this exposition dump in this instructional video, and it perfectly makes sense. So they didn't have to work it into the dialogue from other characters. It's just, hey, let's just show this 1 minute long video and that'll catch everybody up and explain everything. I thought that was really smart and well done.
Yeah, it was fun too.
Yeah.
I loved when she's in the jail cell. That's the clock, and the little chicken. Just so funny. She's like, "Oh, and that got you here." I thought I enjoyed all of it.
And I can't help but compare it to Hulk's explanation of time travel in Endgame. And I think everybody watched that and was like, "What? Huh?" And then I feel like I can see everybody watching this Miss Minutes thing and be like, "Oh, now I get it." It's so much more helpful.
Did anyone get some Dino DNA, Mr. DNA vibes?
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely.
I mean, there we go.
I also like to point out Miss Minutes is voiced by the one famous voice actress Tara Strong, also known for her work on as Harley Quinn in Justice League Action, Batgirl on Titans, Raven, and a bunch of different Teen Titans projects.
I think she's Twilight Sparkle or something on My Little Pony. I was looking at her IMDb page. Like, she's done so much.
Yes, so it is cool to add a talent like that to a cast that's just flawless so far. They've been so good. I want to talk. I said earlier we're going to talk about Mephisto, right? Like we've been keeping an eye out for him, and of course we get a scene in which a child. Owen Wilson's character Mobius asks who did this, and she points to a stained glass window with an image of a devil on there, and it looks just like Mephisto. I mean, they're still toying with us, aren't they? Like they have to know that's what's going on here.
Yeah, I said that to Kyle. I was like, "Is that Mephisto?" So I was like, 100% there.
I feel like I should write a book called like, is it Mephisto? Like I feel like that's like the running gag of the Marvel Universe.
That actually might be a fun idea for a children's book.
Yeah,
just go through a bunch of different things. Is the caterpillar Mephisto?
Yeah, nothing like little children's book filled with demons.
Right, exactly. Another character that we have to talk about too is Ravonna, the judge who has Loki on trial. It kind of seems like a throwaway character here, but for fans of the comics, Ravonna has huge connections to Kang the Conqueror, who is a major Avengers villain that we know we're going to be seeing in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So really interesting to include her. And they actually, when they had the press conference earlier this week, and they asked Gugu Mbatha-Raw, I believe is her name. Hopefully I didn't butcher that pronunciation. She talked about how this is, yes, she's a character, excuse me, from the comics, but they are making this her origin story. So anything we know from the comics about her, this is happening before that. So we can see where this is going to be going for her, and that's, I think, really interesting that she's going to play a bigger role going forward, potentially. I mentioned that we had some really, the cast has been awesome. The chemistry between Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson, I thought, Bekah, you mentioned, you could watch them just sitting in the room talking, which a lot of this episode really is, and yet it works so well.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I was not bored at all. I was very, like, it sucked me in, and I was there with them the entire time. But yeah, just all of the characters really have, all of your like main characters, even I don't know what he is, a clerk who Loki talks to. Like, even that was so fun, and his not knowing of things from like Earth or Midgard or whatever you want to call it, like, so interesting.
Yeah, what's a fish?
Yeah, it was interesting, and everything was funny, and it played so well.
Yeah, I mean, I expected this show to be funny, one, because it's Marvel, and two, because Loki has been a funny character. But I mean, there were a lot of good jokes throughout this episode. I mean, the everything you've ever said, sign here to verify this is everything you've ever said, and then it keeps printing more pages. Or the whole, walk through this to verify you're not a robot. That whole bit was pretty funny as well. So yeah, and my favorite thing in this entire episode is that Loki was DB Cooper. I think that is amazing. I love that they did that. I'm talking to Kyle earlier. I was saying it's funny how Marvel loves to explain, real world unsolved mysteries like the assassination of JFK and then DB Cooper. So we'll see where else they go with Loki here. I was really pleasantly surprised with how much I was laughing at this first episode.
I would love to know, like, the history of the TVA from a bureaucracy standpoint. Like how did they establish that, like, okay, we need a check for robots, we need to have a process, because for millennia, like, there wouldn't have been like that kind of bureaucracy. So like, I'd love to know the evolution of TVA through time, which is kind of funny when you think about it. But yeah, it's like
and that's where thinking too far into this show has just given me a headache, because I'm just like, is there a history to the TVA? Can there be? Is time even a thing for them? I don't even know how that would work. So that's where I start to think in circles around this show right now. So, and speaking of, when Loki or Mobius is showing Loki his future to him, his future, what we've already seen unfold in Thor: The Dark World, and then movies going forward. Loki argues this never happened, and Mobius says it has happened, and it will continue to happen again and again and again. And I think that is like, again, making you think so
on
much.
Disney Plus.
Right, exactly. Yes, it will happen again on Disney Plus.
I'm glad the TVA uses the same shots as the Marvel Studios of life. It's like, it was great that they got the same camera angle. Like, it's not from Loki's point of view; it's from the DVD's point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they didn't want to have to go back and reshoot things from a different angle. So, but I think that's really interesting, that line, because they just tells you, like, well, that's the way that they look at time. They're outside of time, looking at it, where every event that's ever occurred is constantly occurring again and again. And I think that's like, you have to get into that mindset of looking at time in that way to fully get into this show going forward. I think it's going to be really interesting to try and follow along. We'll see what people think about it, a few more episodes in.
Well, and I was thinking, okay, so when does this take place in the story that we know? And I was like, oh, this is just a little bit before the snap. And it's like, no, wait a minute. This is actually 2012, right? So when we next see Loki in the MCU, like the films or whatever, or some other property, he's still going to be like the 2012, I mean, not the 2012 version, but assuming he jumps back into wherever.
Yeah, well, I think the thing to remember with this show is anytime you ask a question that starts with when, the answer is yes. That's the only way to go about it, because it's at all times forever.
Right.
Benji alluded to it earlier, but I think it was a huge moment in this show when they really just write off the Infinity Stones. That secretary or whatever he may be tells Loki some of the guys use them as paperweights, and they have duplicates. There are multiple time stones and multiple power stones and stuff just in a drawer at a desk. And so I think we've been wondering for a long time, like, where do they go from here? The Infinity Saga was so big, and there's so much power at play. Like, how do they up the ante? And I mean, it took them one episode. They've done it.
Right.
So it's going to be really interesting to see where this goes from here.
Yeah, it's what's interesting to me too is having seen 2 episodes and know that there's only 4 left.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much here to explore.
Yeah, and I should mention too that Kevin Feige has said that this show will impact the whole MCU more than the other shows have. So, which makes sense. I mean, it's more, while the other, I guess you can't really say WandaVision was too grounded, but at least Falcon and the Winter Soldier was grounded and in Earth reality. And
and anytime you're dealing with the cosmic, concept of time, like, it kind of has to affect everything. Or
yes. Last thing I want to talk about is the big twist at the end. So we find out that Loki is brought on to help them hunt a different variant. Because Mobius, another line that I love, Mobius says, my job is to track down dangerous variants. And Loki says, oh, like me? He says, no, actual dangerous variants. You're just a pussycat. So we find out that, he's on to help track this variant down. And we find out that the variant is Loki. But not our Loki, a different Loki. So that's where, again, this is going to get, people have to kind of get on board with the craziness that is going to come from this show. So any theories on, we'll go to Bekah for this one. Any theories on what we think this other Loki is going to be?
Mephisto.
Yeah, that is.
I hadn't even thought too far into that. But yeah, who knows?
Yeah, it's funny because WandaVision, I think, trained us to like never try and make theories again. And then Falcon and the Winter Soldier ended up being so obvious that we're like, oh, maybe we can guess this stuff.
Right.
And now this one is just forget it. I don't think there's any chance. So it's definitely gonna be interesting and a lot of fun.
I have a theory.
Yeah, I would think you do.
But I'm not going to say it.
Oh, is this because we'll talk about it next week?
We might be talking. Well, we'll talk about the show next week. That's for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other closing thoughts on this opening episode of Loki before we wrap up today?
I want more.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I cannot wait. I mean, like I said, I've already seen the second episode. I can't wait to see it again.
I haven't seen the first one again yet, so that's my project for tonight. But can't wait.
Yeah. So like I said, we'll be back next week again to break down comics and all the Marvel news. And of course, the next episode of Loki on Disney Plus. Ben, I was just going to ask you what else we have going on.
Yeah, Jane, tomorrow we're not going to have movie club because we actually are covering TV club, because we're actually covering a TV event. So we don't have anyone who can be, it would just be me talking about Loki again. We're going to take a break from TV club just because we want to cover that event, which we will have full coverage on either that night or the next morning, depending on what they tell us when we get there. And then Gemma, I'll be at Universal tomorrow, so I'll have full coverage from there.
Cool. So that does it for us today. So we'll see y'all again. I mean, next week or on other shows before that too. So.
Well, is it next week or is it
timeline?
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, time is nothing anymore. So
I'm gonna have to hit end broadcast.